Texas is next as we talk about the Texas-Washington matchup. And on offense, you have three, not one, not two, but three wide receivers and a tight end on the list. And all of these guys are talented individuals. You got Worthy, Mitchell, Whittington, and Sanders. Sanders, of course, being the tight end, Worthy being the top wide receiver. So break it on down.
Xavier Worthy is a guy that if you asked me 5 years ago, where would you put him? And I would say, hey, Mark, like I foolishly did with Marquise Brown. I would say at 165 pounds, I don't care how fast he is. He's not going to be able to play. He's not going to last. And I think I put a 4th-round grade on Marquise Brown, who ended up going to round 1. And yes, Baltimore did trade him, but he is producing. He's been a productive receiver his entire career. Now we're watching Tank Dell, who now I'm making some progress on accepting that small receivers can be guys too. So I think I put a 2nd or 3rd round grade on Tank Dell last year. Didn't want to put him to round 1. And now we're seeing Tank Dell just absolutely tear it up before his injury with Houston. We're watching Miami offensive football take over the league with what? Speed. Not the biggest guys, but the fastest guys.
But you hit it right on the head, though, there, Dave, and that was before the injury. And
yes,
I think that is what you're dealing with when you're drafting a smaller dude, including one of our favorite players, Keaton Mitchell.
Yep.
Who is now out for the year.
I know.
Again, it wasn't a little guy injury, though. It wasn't like somebody, wear and tear. It was just an injury. So I don't think that did have anything to do with his size. But the point is that that's what happens when you have to take a chance on one of these smaller guys nowadays.
I'm looking at my grade on him right now, and I have like that late 1st-round grade on him. It's like the bottom tier of round 1. And I think I only have 5 receivers with that number as of right now. So I'm high on him. I don't know anyone that has Xavier Worthy in the top 5. But, he's 31 yards away from
top 5 of wide receivers?
Yep. 31 yards away from his first 1,000-yard season. He's not a contested catch guy. He doesn't break tackles. But he ran a 10.55 100 meters in high school. For those that don't know, that is elite speed. We're looking at a guy that might run low 4.3s, maybe even break 4.3 at the combine. He's also a returner. And what I like about him in relation to his size is that he's got a lot of dog in him. He is a fighter. And I have notes on it from every single game tape that I've watched on him and scouted him. I'm writing the same thing about his toughness and attitude.
You mean he's like a tank?
Yeah, exactly. A Tank Dell. Where did that nickname come from? It was his toughness.
Which you have to be at that size.
Have to be. And sometimes you do it to your disadvantage. Tank Dell got hurt trying to block a linebacker in a pile of linemen. Guys like that, they're just not going to last. So with Worthy, if you are bullish on speed, ability to get open, beat guys on all 3 levels, I think you're going to have a 1st-round grade on him. But not everyone's going to see that.
Yeah.
There are some scouts that I know that will never put a 1st-round grade on someone that weighs 170 pounds or less at wide receiver. They don't care what else they do.
And obviously we'll talk more about this over the next few months. But the other thing about speed, as you were saying with Miami and all that, I think you're going to see these speed wide receivers and offensive linemen are going to start getting drafted earlier than normal because there's not enough of them. And so because we used to always think, the quarterback's second round guy, but he's going in the 1st. Why? There's not enough really good quarterbacks. That will always be the case. But I think we're going to start seeing that now in today's NFL because that's the thing. There's not enough speed quality receivers out there because why wouldn't everybody want them? And then definitely the offensive line, which we'll get into as well. That is something that every team is desperate for. So, expect guys like Worthy to get drafted a little earlier than normal because of that.
Yep, I agree with you. Everything you said there.
What about those other 2 receivers? Mitchell he's the other guy that's very interesting, isn't he?
Yes, yeah. 80 Mitchell is a guy that's 6'4", 196, and it doesn't take much tape to watch to notice how silky smooth he is. He's great hands, great in contested situations. He's a great ball tracker. We saw that against Alabama when they faced off at Tuscaloosa. Can he get open consistently is going to be the question. I always have this thing with contested catches that if they're really good in those situations and you keep writing about it, you got to ask yourself, why are they always in contested situations? And sometimes, not always, it's they can't get open. And that's a bigger issue in the NFL than it is in college, because you're just matched up against freaky athletes, the best athletes on the field, the fastest athletes on the field. And they have more size and more experience and more savviness to them. So that's the one question I have on him. I'm not completely sold that he should or will come out, especially if Quinn Ewers is going back. But if you want a receiver, if you want the antonym to Xavier Worthy, you want a little bit slower, but you have that size, you'll like Mitchell. And his skill set is very well developed, ball skills and route running. Jordan Whittington is a guy that he almost ended his career with how many injuries he suffered early. His first 3 years, the first 3 seasons at Texas were ended by injuries. And he comes out, plays most of the snaps in 2022, and then 2023, he's now a Senior Bowl receiver. Just got his invite last week. He's caught 75% of his targets. That led the team, wide receivers and tight ends. He's a special teams type guy that's going to be your number 5, number 6 receiver. But like we talked about earlier, he's an energy stick for an offense. He's a guy that's going to get the ball, take a 5-yard pass, and break tackles and create on his own. And that's something a lot of teams value a lot. A team like San Francisco would love a Jordan Whittington. Kind of reminds me of Ronnie Bell a little bit, just a little bit bigger.
Where do you have him slotted?
Day 3, just because injury history, and I don't think he's going to blow it out in his workout either. So you're looking at a day 3 guy. The tight end, Jatavian Sanders, prior to this year, I made a top 32, and he was a guy that I kept a tier below Brock Bowers. But I said, if there's someone that is going to come out of nowhere and leapfrog Brock Bowers at that tight end position, it's Sanders. He did not do that this year. I still have Bowers head and shoulders above. But I'll tell you what, Brock Bowers, 8.5 yards after the catch, per catch, in terms of just being what he could do with the ball in his hands. Jatavian Sanders, 8.4. They are very similar players. And what I like about Sanders that Bowers does not have, this guy was a 5-star wide receiver / defensive end in high school. He came to Texas not completely sure what position he was going to play. The team quickly put him at tight end. It took him a couple of years to learn that position, but 0 drops. He is a try-hard blocker. He's not one of these kind of mix of slot receiver tight ends that can't block. He can play tight end. He can block, and they move him all over the place. Again, you look at some offenses in the NFL, they're so motion happy now pre-snap. Move this guy here, move that guy there, tight end here, pull back here. Sanders does that for Texas, and I think the transition for him to the NFL is going to be very smooth, and I think his upside is higher than Brock Bowers.
Really? Wow. Okay, so he's first-round draft pick.
First, second-round pick. I would say he's not as safe as Bowers. I don't think he's going to contribute right away the way Bowers does, but I would say at minimum he'll be a top 45 pick.
But it sounds like to me that unless you're, and it's not going to happen because none of those teams are championship teams in the top 5 or top 10 in the draft, but let's just say there was a team that was drafting for luxury. All right, you go with Bowers. But since that's not going to happen, you're telling me is you might see a team that needs a number 1 tight end that says, why should I go after Bowers in the top 10 when I can get Sanders at 30 or 35 or 45?
What did Detroit do in round 2 last year? Who did they take? Sam Laporta.
Yep.
That's what I could see out of Jatavian Sanders next year.
Okay.
I think we could see a very similar situation. But again, part of Laporta's success is where he got drafted into.
Yes,
absolutely. That Brian Robinson offense.
No doubt. Yes.
That's a big part of that. But the more I watch Sanders, the more I want to hold on to that take that I think that the upside of those 2 guys is very similar.
And that's it, basically. Once you get past Sanders, big drop.
Very big drop.
Okay. Not like last year. We had a whole bunch of tight ends.
Yeah.
All right. Defensively, is there a difference maker out of these 4 guys on defense?
Man, I love – and the D tackles, they're big-time players, both of them. Devondre Sweat, 6'4", 346. I bet he's closer to 360. He's not the physical marvel that Jordan Davis was when he came out of Georgia. If you remember the show he put on at the combine at 345 pounds. But he's a little stumpier. He's a little less athletic. Doesn't have the length that Jordan Davis does. But you talk about a guy that's been there for, I think, 5 years now, a 5-year career. And now you're starting to see what he can do. His pressure rate went to 10% for the first time this past year. And that's 10% as a D tackle. If you want to be considered a starting caliber defensive tackle in the NFL, you got to give me that number as a minimum, that 10% pressure rate. And he did it this year. And if you watch him, he did it a lot of different ways. It's not just bull rush. It's not just the size. He can move a little bit. He's got some quick hands. He's got some quick feet. But Byron Murphy, I want you to keep an eye on him in this game. Because if you're going to ask me right now who's the top pass rushing defensive tackle, 9 out of 10 people are going to answer.
In the draft?
Yes. 9 out of 10 people are going to answer Newton from Illinois.
Okay.
I think Murphy is a better pro pass rusher than Newton for the reasons of how much he weighs, how much mass and how much power he can present, how long he is, because Newton's going to measure in pretty short with the length. But Murphy's got the best pass rush win rate among all interior defensive linemen, meaning how many times did he rush the passer, and then how many times did he win? There's not a single defensive tackle in the country that did it at a better level than Byron Murphy. 6'1", 308. I love that body type. I love that size, that Grady Jarrett, Aaron Donald type natural leverage advantage.
Okay.
308 at that height is plenty heavy, plenty dense enough. He's got really quick bursts, really fast hands. He's slippery. He knows how to twist and turn his body while still moving upfield. And I watched him a lot over the second half of the season because I really wanted to watch more of Devondre Sweat, to be honest with you. That's why I was watching them. Every time I walked away from the game, I'm like, this dude he's a dude. He might be a first-round pick. In a defensive tackle group that really is – they're kind of missing like that top guy. You know, I like Newton. I don't love him. I like Chris Jenkins. I don't love him. Byron Murphy might be the top defensive tackle in this class.
And what's the draft slotting? How high?
So Devondre Sweat, I had 25 plus. I think the upside of Byron Murphy is top 20 because of the pass rush.